Hello and welcome to the latest episode of How to Draw Awesome Animals with your friends at Peppermint Narwhal. This is a video series where we teach you how to draw animals in a fun and simple way while we share facts about the species as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started. And since October 20th is International Sloth Day, we've selected, of course, a sloth to draw today. So we've selected the Pygmy three-toed sloth, which, as you can see there, is its common name. Below that, its scientific name is in parentheses. And the reason we chosen this is a critically endangered sloth. So it's one of the sloths that is at most at risk for going extinct. It's also the smallest species of sloth, so there's a lot of cool things, and we'll be talking about a number of those today. So the Pygmy three-toed sloth is the animal that we'll be drawing today. And again, unfortunately, this animal is critically endangered, at least at the time of the recording of this video. All right, we'll get this out of the way, and we'll get ready to get started here. I'll be using, of course, the usual drawing method of pencil and paper. So we'll go ahead and put a little dot on the page. I'm going to be teaching you a drawing method. Some of you are very familiar with this. Some of you are new to the channel. If this is your first time, I'll explain it. I'm putting 3 dots on the page, and I teach you a method that's basically like your traditional dot to dot. Although in the traditional dot to dot, two dots, you just draw a straight line between them and keep connecting them. And usually there's number to help you. We'll never do more than 2 or 3 at a time, so you won't have to worry about any numbering. But when I use 3 dots, I want you to draw a curved line. 2 dots will be your traditional straight line. Of course, since we're drawing animals, we'll be drawing a lot of these curved lines. So as you can see here, I've got 1 dot here, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the end. And this middle dot's going to serve as the arch of the curve. And you can see me kind of mimicking the gesture we're going to be using to make. So I use that middle dot to sort of aim at the arch of the curve, and then work my way to the final dot. So we'll go ahead and start with that. And just like that, we got a nice curved line. So there we go. All right, so now from this last dot where we left off, a lot of times we'll be kind of picking up where that one left off, so that end dot becomes our starting dot. And in this case, that's what we'll be doing here. And put 2 more dots. So again, we have 3 because we're using that end dot. And we'll just kind of continue this around. Another curved line using that middle dot as the arch of the curve. And the nice thing I like about pencil, I've mentioned that a number of times on the channel, is you can kind of draw light at first and then darken as you go. So that's something that the pencil gives you a nice option for. Right at this end dot, we're going to make that now the new starting dot, and we're just going to put a dot there for just our first straight line. So 2 dots just like your traditional dot to dot, and we've got a nice straight line there. Okay, so we're starting to put the head in place for our Pygmy three-toed sloth. So I'll go ahead and put 2 more dots there, just using this end dot now as the starting dot. And there we go, another nice kind of curving line there. That looks pretty good. We're moving along. So let's go ahead and put some eyes on this guy. And to do that, I'm going to put an eye, an oval, right about here on the page. And then I'm going to put another one a bit further out, but on the other side, right about there. So there we go. We've got 2 ovals. And I'm going to color those in, but I'm going to leave a little bit of the white of the paper. If you've been on this channel before, you've heard me say that a lot. And that kind of will serve as a nice sort of highlight by saving a little bit of the white of the paper there. And there we go. We've got a nice sort of 2 dots there for our eyes. Okay, so between the eyes, we're going to start to put in the nose. So to do that, we're going to put a dot here in the middle and another dot just to the right of that. So we got 2 dots. That's a straight line if you remember. And there we go. We'll start that nose coming together. Now from this left side, we'll put a dot just right below that, not too far down. And we'll draw another straight line. And then we'll repeat the process on the other side of the nose. 2 dots there and a straight line. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now for the bottom line, we're going to put a dot in about the middle area here, just a little below the 2 other straight lines. We're going to use those 2 as the end points, or starting and end points. So that gives us a nice curved line, short little curved line there. And there we go. We've got the nice nose starting to come together. So I'm going to put a couple of nostrils on this guy, and to do that, I'm just going to put sort of tilting ovals, one tilting to the left and the other one tilting to the right. And there we go. We've got those nice little nostrils there for our sloth. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot right below the eye there. I'm going to put one kind of right below the nose there. and then another one kind of right below the other eye there. And that's 3 dots, so that'll be a curved line. And there we go, got a nice happy face starting to come together for our sloth. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to leave those 2 end dots. We're actually going to use those, but we're going to put a dot right about here at the bottom. And then going back to those 2 end dots, picture that as your starting dot and the other end dot as your ending dot. So there we go, aim that curved line. And it's almost like we're drawing an upside down moon or a lemon slice there, but that'll be the nice open mouth. And then we'll put a tongue in there. To do the tongue, it's just almost like a lowercase letter M. We'll just sort of on top of a heart there. And I'll just kind of color in the rest of that, just to darken that mouth there. There we go. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to put some details on our sloth here. And this is a 3-toed sloth. There are 2 types of categories of sloths that you could see. There's a number of species, but you could sort of divide them into 3 or 2-toed sloths. So this is a 3-toed sloth, and again, I said it's a pygmy 3-toed sloth, so it's the smallest of the species. Now, the 3-toed sloths, especially the 3-toed sloths, like the pale-throated, the brown-throated, and then the pygmy 3-toed sloths, all look very, very similar. They have sort of this, almost like a eye masking that you'll see on their eyes. So we're going to try to capture that by right around the eye here. We're going to start a dot, put another one up there, and another one up there. So there's 3 dots kind of right around the eye, almost like we're making an eyebrow for now. There we go. And then we'll do the same on this side. 3 dots above that eye, around that eye. Just get a nice sort of rounding of that around the eye there. So that looks pretty good. And then below the eye now, or to the on this side, we'll come back to this side. We'll go ahead and we'll take this dot here that we left off with, and we'll put a dot kind of right about here on the side of the face and just draw a bit of a straight line. So there we go. And we'll do the same on this side. Use this end dot of the eyebrow that's closest to the outside of the head. Put a dot down here and just kind of draw another straight line there. That looks pretty good. Now, we're going to sort of thicken that up. So to do that, we're going to go a little bit lower on the head here. So right about the bottom of this line here, we'll use that dot. And then we'll put another dot here. And we'll just draw kind of a straight line, just like that. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. We'll put a dot about at the bottom of this side, and a dot closer to the eye there. And then draw another line to kind of thicken that up there. That looks pretty good. Now, from these 2 dots here, these 2 lines, I'm just going to sort of curvingly, sort of matching the eye there, just sort of tighten those up, connect them, and do the same on this side. It's a little close, so it's almost like we're just connecting, almost like a straight line. I guess either way, curve or straight line, you're in pretty good shape. And then I'm just going to darken those in. There we go. That's going to give that sort of eye masking that you see there. And a lot of times when animals have masks or some sort of darkening around the eyes, much like you sometimes see a sports athlete, like a baseball player or a football player, will have like black paint that they'll paint under their eyes. That's to help manage glares or light, sun. These guys are rainforest animals, so they're going to live where the sun can be pretty bright and pretty harsh at times. So having that little bit of extra sort of protection or extra glare management, it can be very helpful to them. So, all right, so we're going to start another little detail on this guy. I put a dot right about here on the head here. I'm going to just sort of put another dot over here and another dot towards the end of the head. And with these 3 dots, I'm just going to sort of bring that up a little bit, just like a nice curve around the eye. And then from this middle dot, we're going to kind of repeat this process over here, bringing it to the back side, and again, 3 dots, and another sort of subtle curve there. Now, what I'm going to do here with this is I'm going to sort of create another little band here. We don't have a lot of room here, so I'm going to use the sort of end points here as starting and end points of this sort of line that I drew, and I'll put one in the middle. And then again, we're going to just kind of make a curved line, sort of bring that together. And again, just darken that in, a little bit of extra, darkening there. Sort of captures the sloth. And I'm going to scribble it a little bit more out of the lines there because they actually have sort of very shaggy hair. I'm going to go ahead and now take the top of the head and just add a little bit of jaggedy lines, just to kind of show that the sloths sometimes get almost look like they got bedhead, or they just woke up and haven't combed their hair. So there's certainly kind of that's actually a defensive strategy, and we'll kind of talk about that. That sort of messy looking hair actually kind of helps them blend in. So next thing we're going to do is we kind of got the head shape coming together. We're going to put another dot right at the bottom line of this mask. Put another straight line there, just 2 dots. Just extend that down a little bit. And on this side, we're kind of doing a little bit of, we're going to have a little bit of the arm start to come off here. So for right now, I'm going to put a dot here and a dot here for we're making a shoulder. And we're just going to kind of do a little bit of a curved line here. So he's going to kind of be hanging from a branch here, as you'll start to see. So now that I've got that arm started, that shoulder started, I'll continue along to the rest of the arm there with just a straight line, 2 dots. So we'll kind of extend that along. And then from this dot, we're going to put a dot here, and we're going to put a dot here. 3 dots, got a nice sort of simple curved line here, and that's going to be, they have a little bit of a longer forelimb than they do the upper part, and that's going to help them grab and grasp at those branches that they're going to be reaching towards and hanging from. Okay, so this guy's starting to look pretty good. We'll go ahead and finish the underside of this arm here. I'm going to come to about here on the page and put a dot. There we go. And I'll put another dot maybe about here, and another dot maybe about here. So there we go. We've got 3 dots. And again, you can go either way on these direction-wise. You can either start where I originally put the first dot and then, aim at the end dot. But once we got 3 dots, it really doesn't matter which direction you go in the drawing. It's kind of commutative in that way, so either way will work. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. That's getting us up to kind of this wrist and hand area here. So from there, I'm going to put 3 dots kind of close together here to start the wrist off. So there we go. And we're just going to kind of make a nice curved line there. And then the rest is, we're going to work on this. They have these big, long nails. These, of course, they call them 3 toes because they, on the forelimbs of this animal, they'll have 3. They all have 3 on the back legs, but some of the sloths have only 2 toes on the front forelimbs, whereas other species will have, the majority of them have 3, but only 2 of sloth species have 2 toes, and those are referred to as 2-toed sloths, the Hoffman and the Linnaeus. So again, we're drawing a 3-toed sloth here, so we'll keep that in mind as we draw our toes. So we'll now go out here where this dot is that we had left over. We'll use it, and then we'll go ahead and put just 2 more dots for another nice curved line. That's kind of starting those toes there. So there we go. And from this bottom part here, we'll put a dot there. We'll put a dot here and a dot here. And I'll just kind of make a nice curving line there. So there we go. And then I'm going to put a dot just similar to how I did the other ones in the middle there, 3 dots. So there we go. We've got, now you see we definitely have like 2 toes there. And at the top of this, I'm just going to add a 3rd one by kind of mirroring that off here. Just another curved line. So there we go. We've got 3 toes. 3 toes that you would see on the, that's how they count them on the front foot. So we'll go ahead and just round these off at the end, just with a simple little straightish curvish line. Doesn't almost matter too much. And then from the back of these, we'll just kind of do another rounding effect here, just to kind of show those big long claws that they have coming off their front foot. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And now we're going to come to the back side of this guy. We'll come back to this back neck area. We'll put a dot there, a dot there, and a dot there, and we'll just start making the back side of this guy. And then we'll kind of keep that going by adding a little bit, using that dot, adding another one here. And as I said, these guys kind of live in the trees. They're very slow-moving animals. They eat, vegetation. They're vegetarians, so they are pretty much a sitting target, though, for predators. So they need a different strategy, and that strategy is sort of blending in, camouflage. And they're one of the few mammals that you can sort of actually say is, has a greenish color to them. When you think of green mammals, you're not going to find too many on your list. But this animal is not necessarily green by its pigment, but its hair. Remember I said it's kind of messy. We'll look at the top hair, how we did that. We'll do the same thing for this bottom part of the sloth here. We'll just kind of, jagged that line up that we just drew. But this sort of jaggedy hair and their tendency to be moving so slow and so stationary in the rainforest, being so lush with vegetation, there's actually algae that'll grow on this animal's body. So the high humidity and the presence of the algae will actually allow the sloth's body to kind of be an incubator for it. So they'll get this sort of greenish tint to their messy hair, and it almost looks like it becomes vegetation, at least from what it would resemble. So an animal that's a predator might be looking through the rainforest and only really see this sort of greenish area that just looks plant-like and not on the menu. So that's kind of the sloth strategy. By being so slow and so stationary most of the time, they don't draw a lot of attention to themselves. And then they also have this sort of extra bit of defense by just sort of, having algae growing on them, which can actually help them blend in this very green environment that they live in. Okay, we're working on a back leg here. They have a longer forelimbs than they have back legs, but we'll kind of cover that here in a minute we'll just sort of do a little bit of curved line up here. There we go. And then from this point here, we'll go ahead and put a dot here and a dot here, and then we'll bring that kind of back around. There we go. And we'll just sort of take this bottom part that we have here, and we're just going to kind of continue that up with 2 more dots. There we go. And then from this dot here, we'll put a dot out here and a dot out here, and just kind of bring that back. Now, if you remember me saying that they have 3 toes always on the back, regardless of the species, so we know we're going to do 3 toes here. I'm going to go a little faster. I put 3 dots and did a curved line here, but now I'm just going to kind of show that you can just kind of mirror that. Just kind of watch what you've drawn and just repeat it. So there's 2 toes, and there's a 3rd toe. And I'm just rounding those off at the end, capping them off, and then rounding them off on the foot itself there. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so now our sloth's kind of coming together. I'm going to go ahead and come back to this head area here, and I'm just going to kind of continue this by doing a dot right about at the end of that area here, and just kind of a dot here and a dot here, and just make a nice curved line to kind of bring that back down. I'm just going to put a little bit of a chin on this guy, so I'm going to put a dot here, a dot here, right about on the shoulder, and a dot there, and I'll just kind of bring that back. And I'm just going to kind of color that in and thicken it up a little bit, just by darkening, especially towards a little thicker in the middle and a little less on the ends, just kind of give it a little bit of a nice sort of chin there. And this sloth would have a little bit of a darker chin. There are some on the larger versions of these, they're cousins. You'll find the 3-toed sloth. There's a pale-throated and a brown-throated. And the brown-throated would have a little bit darker brown patch here. Otherwise, they do look fairly similar. In fact, a lot of these, the pygmy and those 2 sloths I just mentioned, they do have a lot of similarities. Although this guy's only found in one very specific small region area, and he's also much smaller than the other 2, so he stands out in that respect. So he's also one of the sort of smallest ranges of the sloth species. Okay, so from the belly here, we're just going to put a line here, or I'm sorry, dot here, dot in the middle, and a dot on the leg. So bottom of this foreleg to then the top of the back leg, and just kind of connect that there. So that's looking pretty good. And now we're going to start to put in the branch here that we need to sort of have this guy hanging on. So to do that, between these 2 legs here, or 2 hands, or I'm sorry, these 2 feet here, you kind of got a dot here, and we'll put a dot here on the leg, and just draw a straight line, kind of connecting that. And kind of continuing about where that would be, I'll put a dot on the back leg, and I'll put a dot over here. So just kind of continuing that. It should be about the same sort of, like it would be going underneath this, obviously the feet would be covering that up here. So we'll now pick that back up at the top here. I'll put a dot here. We're getting close to the top of our page, but that's okay. And we'll just sort of continue that there. So that's going to give us a bit of the thickness of this tree branch that he's sort of hanging from. Now I'll kind of come back to this side here, and to do that, we'll make it a little thinner at the top here. And of course, if you look at tree branches, they, of course, the further they go up, the thinner they get. The lower they go, the thicker they get, because that's, you know, how they grow. So we'll go ahead and put just a slight angle on this straight line here. So there we go. We've got this sort of line coming down there. There we go. And then again, kind of picking up where it would be about on the animal here. You can see I got 2 more dots there. So that looks pretty good. Another fun thing about sloths is certainly these guys are arboreal. That's a word you've heard sometimes on this page, where it basically means that this is a tree animal. Now, of course, that's where they spend most of their time, but they live in the rainforest, and they actually are quite good swimmers as well. A lot of people maybe don't realize that, but they need to sometimes leave a tree to find a mate or to find better areas. Sometimes the forest floods, and they need to make a decision about where they're going to find their next meal. I'm just putting 2 dots here and continuing this along, and you can see it's a little thicker towards the bottom here of this trunk. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to put a little bit of just wood grain details out, like the bark or whatever. So to do that, I'm just making sort of meandering lines. You can kind of do it sometimes making like fake little spirals here and there. And you can see here I'm just adding a little bit of detail, you know, kind of add lightly, not as thick of a drawing too. You don't want this to stand out because it's more of a detail. But I'll just add some little bit of wood-like quality to my branch there. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of put on the other 2 feet here, and we've got them sort of right here. We're going to put another group of toes. So to do that here, I'm going to put a dot here at the root, that sort of side of the tree. Put a dot here and a dot kind of touching the other 3 toes. And we're just going to kind of make that curving there, and what we're seeing here is actually this foot is actually sort of the tip that's sort of hanging on from the other side. So again, we've got to make 3 toes on here. I'm just going to darken the line of my original toes and then kind of put just 3 markers that I got 3 other new toes kind of wrapping around, and that'll make sense when we put on the rest of the foot. So let's do that now. So we'll put a dot here, a dot here, and a dot here, kind of close together, and we'll just sort of, so right now this other foot is sort of hanging around the other side of the tree and then gripping it from that side. So that's what we've got going on. So now I'll put another dot here on the back side here, put a dot here and a dot here, and there we go, another curved line. And essentially this leg is kind of going up here and then grasping around the other side. So that looks pretty good. Now we'll do the same thing happening here with this other arm here. This other arm's going to be about right here. Put a dot there to start that arm, and put a dot there. And there we go, we've got this other arm starting to come around the other side of the sloth. And the rest of the arm is kind of covered up by this arm, so don't need to worry too much about that. But we'll come back up to this top part. I'm actually going to use my eraser here, and I'm just going to erase out a little bit of the top of the tree there to give me room for those claws. So now that I've got that guy in there, that space in there, I'm going to put a dot here, and a dot here, and a dot here, and I'm going to make a nice curved line. And essentially I'm going to make 3 toes up here. Remember, this guy has 3 toes. So I'm just kind of repeating that same thing. If you need to erase out a little more, feel free to do so. And then just kind of, you know, cap off your claws and then give them a little bit of a rounded edge at the back side. So that looks pretty good. So there's that, the claws kind of coming around this side. Now from this tip of this claw over here, I'll use put a dot there. I'll put a dot here. I'll put another one right there. And we'll just kind of give a little bit of hint of that arm, sort of that front paw a little bit, front hand there, or foot, as you want, whatever you want to call it. Sort of that grasping hand there as we're right around the other side of this branch. So there we go. We've got a nice looking little sloth here. You can again continue to add a little bit more details here. We're pretty much done with our drawing. I'm just going to kind of thicken up my eye areas there. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more kind of fuzziness to this guy. Remember I said they're kind of a little bit shaggy looking sloth, and just sort of same thing on this side, just kind of thicken that up there, shag it up so that we got that kind of capturing of that, kind of working our way into the chin a little bit there. So there we go. We've got a nice, maybe I'll add a little bit of, just a little bit of shading down here, a little bit, maybe some of that algae starting to grow there. Just kind of darken that up, and again you can kind of take your lines and, you know, break them up a little bit with a little more jaggedy lines to kind of show that very, almost looks like they're part of the reason we have a term of sloth as a negative adjective, the sloth lifestyle is, certainly sort of lethargic. And partially that's because of, again, as we talked about, a defensive mechanism. It's also partially because the animal eats food that is very calorie inefficient. So that's another problem that they have, they're not going to use a lot of energy because they don't have a lot of energy. So that's two reasons why the sloth is so sort of slow. But it's also kind of gotten this perception as being lazy or disheveled looking, and those terms have transferred to people. Sometimes you hear someone call people, sloth-like, or even one of the sort of 7 deadly sins that you sometimes hear about is one's called sloth. And that basically means that, you shouldn't be lazy or lethargic. So it's sort of borrowed from a sloth, but a sloth is not a lazy animal. It's not a lethargic animal. A lot of times when we apply human perceptions to animals, that's something called anthropomorphism. And what we're essentially doing with that is we're sort of seeing the world through our eyes. But our eyes are very unique, and look at the difference between our eyes and a mantis shrimp's eyes, very different, or a fly's eyes. So we can't really apply our measuring stick to other animals, but sometimes we do that, and that's why you sometimes hear people say, sloth is a, sort of a negative term. But we love sloths. Sloths are great. They're wonderful animals, and certainly a lot of people share that sort of affinity. They've become very popular over the years. But we'd love to see how your sloth turned out. Remember that this animal is an endangered species. We're drawing the Pygmy three-toed sloth, certainly critically endangered, so definitely in need of some help. We'd love to see how your drawings turned out. Post them again using the hashtag #MintySketch. You can use your parents' help if you need to before you post that, and that way we can all sort of see this, how your drawing turned out, and share it with other people from the channel. Thank you again for drawing with us today. We had a lot of fun. We hope you did as well. If you like this video, please give it a like, and again, if you'd like to keep up to date with future videos, subscribe to the channel by ringing that bell, and that'll give you the first notice on any new videos we post. Otherwise, we'll see you back here soon in a future episode of How to Draw Awesome Animals with your friends at Peppermint Narwhal. Bye-bye.